We're going to move into the last phase of our clinic here, and it's going to be practice judging 11 vaults.
So get your pencil and paper ready. We will tell you the start value. You don't have to look it up. Number 1 is going to do a Yurchenko layout, 9-7 start. Here's our script. So we're going to just talk the deductions and then we'll go through them with it in slow. Got a little body position coming on and a little legs bending. Her arms were slightly soft on the table and a little shoulder angle. We did have bent legs also. You'll notice that she had to pike it down because she didn't have enough height. We had 3 in height and up to 1 in distance. So she had to pike down the vault, and then her body position on landing was 2. Landing was 1/10 step, 1 to 1.5 in dynamics. So our ending score was 8.375. So if you were in the lower 8s, you were correct. So let's watch her in slow. So right here, do you see those knees bending early? And then she couldn't maintain that stretch because she couldn't block off and go high enough. So we'll show her pre-flight, and there she is coming on, and it's not a bad shape, but she's starting to have loose knees right away. And as soon as she contacts, her knees will bend more with that shoulder angle. And now she's got body position errors already blocking off. And so she's not continuing to go up. And now she's got to try to maintain that stretch. And that's not going to happen for her. She's got to pike it and then open it, landing with her chest a little bit low and the step and dynamics. So she's down in the 8s. She also runs flat footed. So number 2, layout again, 9-7 start. We'll compare. And you'll see it again. Okay, well, I'm going to talk about the score range first. We're still in the lower to mid 8s because she had those big running steps backwards. And if you took that away, her score would have been much higher. But she did have a little legs bent coming on. She had that little shoulder angle of 1/10 on top of the table. 2/10 in height. She had better height than the last girl. She actually had better dynamics than the last girl. Distance was okay, but she couldn't, again, maintain that stretch and had to pike it down for 2. So we took 4 on the running steps backwards and 1 in dynamics. So that's really what killed her vault from upwards towards a 9. So let's look at her in slow. And she was just loose and couldn't maintain it. And that was unfortunate at the end there. But we'll see her in stop action so we can see her errors. So she's got soft knees right there that you might have seen, you might not have. But otherwise, her shape is good coming on. She leaves pretty good, pretty stretched. Tiny shoulder angle there. You see that when she's on the table. She does have some blocks. She goes up, but she already can't maintain that shape. So she's got to be a little more pike than hollow. And now she has to totally pike down to land. And then 1, 2, 3, 4 is what we counted. Well, we figured it's 4. It's the most we can take. And the dynamics. So that brought us down to an 8.4. Okay, vault number 3, Yurchenko Tuck full 9.8. We see these at level 9 as well. So let's look at her. So we're still stuck down there in the low eights because she had big landing errors and lack of height. So she was down at 825, but let's see why. We had a little body position coming on. She had leg bends in the support phase. We took 3 in height. It didn't go up enough. 1 in distance. She didn't open. So we had the 0.25 plus body position of 2. And then she had to step towards the table, meaning she was landing short and under rotated. So we had to take that 1 plus the 1 for the step. And then on her landing, we had 3/10 for that low landing. Her knees were almost on the mat, and a little bit for feet. So dynamics 1 to 1.5. So that brought us quite a bit down in the low eights from a 9.8. Let's look at her in slow, see if we see all those things. So you notice how she's tucking those legs early. It started a little bit in her pre-flight, and then when she was on the table, her knees were quite a bit bent. Okay, she's stretching. Her knees are now going to start to bend right there. So we had 2, and then she didn't really go up a whole lot. She could hardly get it around. She couldn't get it open. And then she almost had her knees on the mat. So we took the 3 plus the 1 for the step and the under rotation 1. And I also feel like she seemed saggy on top of the table, and we didn't have a deduction for that. But now I'd like to go back and take one. There is another Yurchenko Tuck full 9.8, comparing the 2. Okay, we finally got one up in the higher eights. The issues with her, I think, were just minor little legs bent and legs apart, but 2 in height, maybe a little distance. But she was kind of in an open tuck. I think that maybe could have been 1/10 instead of 2/10 there. But her opening was okay. We took 1 on opening and 1 on body position, 1 on step, 1 in dynamics, and that brings us down to an 8.9-ish. Let's look at her in slow. So coming on, notice how she bent those knees a little bit early in the pre-flight even, and then on top. So we had 1.5 in there. And now she's doing her salto with the tuck, but it's really a pretty open tuck. It could be a little more closed. Landing a little bit chest down and lack of opening body position. And way better than the girl that did the same vault before. All right, here's our front vault, handspring front tuck 9.8. So now we're back to our mid-8 because of those big running steps that she had to take, of which we took 4. So it could have been a much higher score in vault. Looking at her deductions, she did come on with a little shoulder angle. She had some legs bending a little early to do her front tuck. 2 to 3 in height. It was pretty average for height. Distance around 1. Insufficient tuck piker stretch would have been tuck. We did take 1 to 2. We'll look at that. A little bit lacking of opening and a little body posture on landing as she's falling forward. So then, of course, her feet were flexed, and we had 4 on the landing and 1 in dynamics. So we're at around 8.525. Let's look at her parts and see how we came up with that. So she comes on fairly straight. She just can't open it at the right time and land it. So she's opening as she's landing. So here's her pre-flight. That is pretty good. We have just a little bit of soft legs, it looks like. Support phase, she's got a little shoulder angle and her legs are bending early. And then her height, flex feet, 2 to 3. As she's trying to open, she's still rotating forward. So she couldn't maintain that. And then we had the opening, the body posture, the big steps. All right, new vault. Handspring front tuck, 9/8. Pre-flight, we had body position coming on 0.15. We had feet, a little bit of arm bends and a little shoulder angle. So our height was 1.5 to 2.5, little distance, little open, under rotated. She had to step back and then sat, legs apart. You can see those are just general little things, but it all added up because of the fall to down to the lower eights. If you were anywhere down there in that realm, you're in the right ballpark, starting at a 9/8. See the shoulder angle there. And she needed more height. She's rotating around her shoulders, so she's not really blocking upwards. So here she goes on. She's got a pike and an arch and the head out. So that creates that shoulder angle when she's on top. Some height needed more, knees apart, feet are flexed. And now she should be opening, but she had to sit backwards. So down in the low eights. All right, new vault. Handspring front tuck half, 10-0, but not bonus. We're in the middle eight. It was just really kind of messy, and her biggest issues were the lack of height and the lack of opening and her body position on opening. So that really added up to a lot for her. Her body position coming on was, we took one. She had legs apart. She had feet flexed. She did have an arch on the table and a shoulder angle. And then we had the early tuck of the legs. So it was just basic execution for that girl, and a lot in height and a lot in opening and body posture on landing, legs apart, feet 05, landing 1.5 to 2. So you can see all that, but it did start at a 10, but she's still down at an 8.55. So let's look at her in slow and see if we can see those differences. So now we'll see her in stop. And you'll notice right there, she's got the legs are apart and the knees were bent. And then on the table, she's got the arch and the legs and the feet and the shoulder angle. And now she's trying to get that turn in, and she just doesn't have enough height to get that around and open it up. So she doesn't open well, and she doesn't land with her chest up. And then she has to take, I think, probably 2 steps. Yurchenko full laid out 10-0. So she is our winner so far. She had the smallest deductions. We had a little shoulder angle on the table of 0.5, 0.15 in height. It still could have been higher, could have been 2. A little distance, little pike down, only a 1/10, and then a little legs apart. So her landing was just a step and a half kind of thing. Maybe nothing in dynamics, and maybe 0.5 in direction. We'll see how she actually lands. So you could have been a 9.3 to a 9.45, and scores would have been right in there. So we ended up with 9.35. So let's look at her in slow. Pretty clean. So here's her pre-flight. Looks like she got a little soft knees, but she did come off fairly quickly, and she's still maintaining her stretch there, but she had a 1/10 pike down and a little kind of to the side. So that was our 0.5 in direction. So now we're going to see another one. Yurchenko full, 10-0 start. We did have little soft legs. We had a little tiny shoulder angle. She was lacking a little bit in height, and so therefore she had to pike it down. So we had 1.5 to 2 for that. And then the body posture on landing with that chest a little low. Because she landed short, she had to step toward the table. So we had to take the 1/10 under rotation. It was similar to the vault before, but the girl before did not under rotate. She had 1 on the landing. This girl landed a little bit lower with her chest. So we were down at 9.25. The third of our Yurchenko fulls, and this one only got a 9.0 because she just had a little bit in the pre-flight. Mostly it was the height of 0.25. It was the piking down. She in the air had to pike a lot, so we took 2. Then her body posture on landing, we took 2, and under rotated 1. So those were her bigger deductions. And then we had 0.5s in her little legs and legs apart and little dynamics. And landing was really pretty good. We only took 0.5. So we were down at about a 9.0. So if you were a low 9, you were doing the right thing. And it should be definitely lower than the other 2 we saw. So here she is in slow. She had quite a bit of pike in there, and those legs were apart kind of throughout the whole thing. Pre-flight, loose legs, a little bit apart, legs apart, loose legs, kind of average height, but the legs and the piking of the body in the air, she couldn't keep that stretch. And then when she landed, she was quite bent over. So we had to take the whole 2 on body posture. And just a little scooch with her feet. Our last vault, Yurchenko 1.5. And our last one wasn't the big wow, being the bonus vault. And so, of course, when they fall, they don't get the bonus +1. So we ended up with a mid 8, 8.575, could have been an 8.7, but she had a little bit of form errors in the pre-flight, and on the table, she had a little early turn and some legs. 2 to 3 in height. She couldn't get that 1.5 around, lacking height. And we, of course, had to take under rotation, and the legs were a little bent, and we had 5 for the fall and some dynamics. I mean, you can't do a 1.5 vault and not be dynamic. She did have dynamics. It just wasn't quite there yet today. So we ended up with 8.575. So remember, you don't have to bingo our scores. It's, are you in the same ballpark? That's the good thing. So here she goes, legs apart, bent legs, can't hold on to it, has to go backwards and sit down. So unfortunately, I think it would have been a great vault, but not today. See those legs apart right there? And then do you see how she's turned a little bit already? She's twisted a little bit on the table instead of blocking off and then starting her twist, and her legs are apart. And then her hip rise wasn't as big as it should have been, 2 to 3. We've got some feet in there, and she just needed to get it around a little bit more. So we had the under rotate, we had the legs, the feet, and the fall. So that was unfortunate. So 8.575.